I used
Except
to,
you have to mow the lawn in any case. So
yeah, I used to really enjoy mowing. I will admit, it was a time when that was something I liked doing. Not now, but
yeah, I can imagine. I'm still I still like to do it and can and you know if I do it, then I won't take a walk. So
uh-huh,
it amounts to the same
that's
thing.
good. Sure. Good morning, Bill.
Morning, Bill.
Morning. Hi, Bill. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
How are
We
you
got
this morning?
I'm all right. We're recovering from a long weekend. We had guests and stuff. We had a high school graduation of I guess, our middle grandson
Ah,
weekend. So that was great. He was a valedictorian, as was his
Wow.
brother. So
wow.
they're quite a
Nice.
pair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not a bad tradition.
yeah.
No, not at all.
How are things there?
Um,
uh, Go ahead, David.
with me, they're really quite good, um, physically and mentally. Weather's getting nice finally, and just need more hours in the day.
More hours in the day. uh,
It's been my issue for about 35 years.
35 years. Uh,
Uh,
more things you'd like to do than are possible, right?
that and they get crowded by the things I have to do.
Well, yeah, I feel that way too. Yeah. Yeah, the things that I say that I like to do are the things I'm not doing a lot of the time.
I
So,
know. Yeah. Well, where are our ladies this morning?
now, are they coming in person?
Nope. Well, they
Oh, I don't
usually
see
they
them.
tell me if they are, but I don't.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't see that. Yeah, when they're coming in person, they're late.
uh, so,
How's Madeline doing, Bill?
she's doing good, I think, and
Good.
we both feel real busy. We've had a real round of house guests, so now
Ah.
we have a big round of sheets and
Oh
and
yes.
she prepares ahead, so everything is like a quiche that you can warm up and so the meal preparation is so preparing to have get multi-day guests and having them and then the after guest activity
Yeah.
it extends it considerably,
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you the
but
sheet
it's all
folder?
good. Pardon?
Are you the sheet folder?
Well, I only do flat sheets.
Okay. Yeah, I hate the the elastic ones. Yeah.
That's one of the many things that separates the sexes, in my opinion. Uh, Folding fitted sheets.
uh,
But they don't need to be folded. They need to be put back on the beds. Is what
well, that's sometimes easier.
that is easier. Yeah.
Have you had any time for mushroom
We
looking?
haven't had that, yeah, we haven't had that much rain until we had about 5 days straight of either drizzle or rain, which was really nice. I was out in
Mm.
the woods yesterday, actually, with a group of people. Rachel was running a nature camp here,
Ah,
and it's at a brand new location, and they've cleared a mile and a quarter of trails, which are really impressively cleared and out through the brush. And we went back into these woods, and I was disappointed not to see many mushrooms.
ah,
Just some things, polypores on trees that were there before the rain. So, um, yeah, but it's still a little early. They really crank up towards the end of June and July after there's more heat. But
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess maybe we should go ahead and they'll come when they can come. I I know both of them have caring for their husband issues, so we have to be lenient about that.
indeed.
So, how are you doing opening and closing your shoulder? You do have two of them.
Oh, we're supposed to do both of them.
Yeah, preferably yes.
I didn't actually practice very much this past week. Um,
Mm.
I did when I was just sitting, or even once driving,
Uh huh.
or waiting in the chiropractor's office. I did spend time doing that. This shoulder is so complicated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little parts to think about opening shoulder blade, the whole. I mean, I tend to be thinking right at this joint right here,
Yep.
but there's so much more connected
Yes.
to
Uh,
loosen up. But
one thing I didn't say when I was going through about the shoulder blades is that the side to side movements that we've worked on for a long time are also opening and closing, obviously. And they also affect the heart to some degree, but not like when the shoulder blades actually go away from the heart and towards the heart, which is a very small movement. And in a way, that's perhaps the hardest of the three elements in the shoulder. Although, even though we've talked repeatedly many times about the shoulder's nest, being aware of the fact that it has also a very slight movement, um, we forget. we don't we don't hold on to that one sometimes. So I just want to throw that out. Um, the side to side movement of the scapula doesn't stop when you begin to work on the forward and back. It goes on, but I would presume at this point that you are well enough established in that element to not have to think about it, which allows you to think about the other. And I'm going to talk more about it today, but one of the things with that is that you really need to work on those three elements one at a time until you get each of them established. Because to try to focus on three different things happening when you're trying to get them established is really impossible. Or very nearly so. There may be people who can, but I don't know them. So did you have anything else you wanted to say, Bill Bynum?
No, although it would be helpful if you just shorthand go through the three things again, because I'm saying, gee, I want to go back and look at the notes.
Sure.
Yeah, and I haven't had a chance to look at the notes yet. I do remember positioning ourselves against the wall in the studio and working on the shoulders. So I assume that we're somewhere in that neighborhood.
Somewhere. So the three areas that we have to work on in the shoulder are the actual shoulder joint, which if you follow the edge of the collarbone up to the top of the shoulder, you'll realize that there's a little gap there, and that's where the actual shoulder joint is between the bone of the upper arm and the collarbone itself. And so that's, for most of us, it doesn't move a whole lot. The example that's been used is that actually, if you've seen pictures of what happens to that joint with a really good pitcher, who's, as they develop their fastball, that space begins to open and close as they throw, and you can really see it. And supposedly Zhang Xing Fu, not Zhang Xing Fu, sorry, Yang Lu Chen was able to put an egg into that gap. He had opened it so much. So it is possible to move that, and so that's the first that's the shoulder joint itself that we're endeavoring to get to at least have a sense of opening and closing. A lot of the elements really you feel as much eventually energetically as physically. Depends on the size of the movement. That's one that for most people, I think, we feel more energetically than physically. There is a certain slight amount of movement there, but it's not big for most of us real people. The other the one that we were talking about before is that we now want the scapula to open straight back and to close going straight in. And as I said, that's in addition to the side movements. And again, that's going to be a very small movement. I mean, I can feel it happening, and I have just a bit of movement, but it's not huge. And you're not doing it, of course, by moving the shoulders in a large way, or the chest or the back separately. You're really trying to get the scapula themselves to move out and move in. and that will be a very small movement. But it is extremely effective in massaging the heart and helps to at least keep the functioning of the heart good and the movement of the blood through the body going well. So it's a really important piece of this to try to have that happen. And then the other one is the shoulder's nest, which principally we've talked about keeping it soft and keeping the hollow there, but it too opens and closes a little, and it's not a huge movement, but it also opens out and closes in. So those are the three parts of the shoulder.
Thank you.
Other questions about that?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
Just trying to formulate it in my head. When we deal with the hand, the fingers, the elbow, there are fairly specific points that we're at least focusing on getting the energy to move through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, so are we thinking about the energy moving through the space between, the collarbone and the tip of the shoulder up top,
Yep.
and uh, where in the scapula, just
I
between the
really think of.
scapula,
I'm sorry.
between the scapula and the rib cage.
That's part of it. It also is that plus the side-to-side movements, of course, are working on the flow of the energy from the shoulder joint itself and the shoulder's nest through the scapula to the spine.
Okay.
So you're right. When we think about a finger joint or the elbow joint, it's a nice specific point.
Yeah.
But the scapula becomes a little bigger because of its size, their
Yeah.
size, and the energy is not going through in a little thin line,
Right.
but it's working its way through that whole space.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else for you, Bill?
I just one thing I noticed that now, for whatever reason, I think I tuned into the scapula a long time ago. Once we
Uh-huh.
joke about it, but I think when mostly for the opening and closing rather than side to side, bringing it closer together, and then there's a big difference if you lead with the scapula versus if you sort of lead by throwing your shoulders,
Yeah.
opening your shoulders and having it be back. And you lead with the scapula, it seems to open up the shoulder
Yes.
as you do it pretty automatically. And
Yep.
if you let the shoulder lead, for me, it seems to say close more as the scapula come closer together.
And that's kind of in the why we talk about all three of these points together, because they function more effectively when they're all working together and you're not simply focusing on one. Sometimes in the beginning you need to focus on just one in order to establish your awareness of what it means to open and close that point. But as you point out, maybe you get a greater awareness when you add another another element. And so that develops. It's part of why, as you're working, I'm going to talk more about this today, but as you're practicing to open and close all these points, um, that you really have to stay open to possibilities and what's happening. Yes, the ideal is to make sure that each joint, each place that we want to open and close is doing it clearly, and that we know for sure that we are doing it before we put everything together. But that isn't always the way that works best. So sometimes you have to say, well, let me just try something. And seeing if moving your scapula and your thinking of your scapula and your shoulders nest together functions better than doing them separately initially. Because eventually you want everything to work together, obviously, simultaneously, not one at a time. We we don't open sequentially through the body like playing pool. Eventually they all open and close simultaneously. So I think what I was saying, and I'll talk more about it in a minute, but as you're practicing all of this, one of the things is to be open to the possibilities, to let yourself say, well, that's not working too well, let me try something else. And also not to beat yourself up at all, because this is not easy. And eventually we're going to be putting a lot of different parts together simultaneously, and that isn't easy, as you know. You've already run into that issue. But with opening and closing, it sometimes is a little more difficult, or not. Depends on you.
Yeah, well, even with just the hands, the wrist, and the elbow, it's changed the feeling of doing this
Yeah.
uh, considerably.
Yeah.
Yep. I think I would like to ask another question just to make
Sure.
sure I'm getting this. So with the hand, wrist, elbow, um, we can feel them moving, but it's not about the muscular movement, the physical movement.
No.
Now we're talking about the shoulder somewhat in physical terms, probably because we're not accustomed to thinking about the shoulder in the same way as the elbow and the wrist. But the energy, we're still focusing on the energy flow rather than the movement of the shoulder joints.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's one of the things about the scapula, whatever direction they're moving. It's you can make it, as with almost anything, a real physical motion that you cause to happen. I'm
Yeah.
sitting here doing it
Yeah.
by using using the muscles.
Yeah.
But you can also have it make this movement, which seems kind of counterintuitive, by using the energy. And as you pointed out, that moves more energy when you do.
Okay.
So, um, trying to think if I really need. I may send you these notes and just talk a little bit, since we've talked quite a bit already and we've gotten into it. One of the things that I talked about is using the dynamic sphere as a training tool, a practice within which you can focus with a more comfortable movement, or more movement that you're more aware of, that has repetition rather than going on to a new something new over and over. So it's a great place to practice these elements. And one of the things, and this came up more, I think, with Joanne and Carol than it did with you guys, but probably for you too, that I'm not talking about just doing the basic dynamic sphere standing in Wujibu. I'm going to give you a couple of variations, and I'm serious when I say there probably are 100 variations of the dynamic sphere. I practiced, I don't know, 20 or 30, and I know that I have not explored all the possibilities. So, but my thought was to give you other movements, of other ways of doing the dynamic sphere that, for one thing, change the pace of the opening and closing, rather than keeping it exactly the same time after time, which may be helpful, but also eventually when we take it into gods or into form, we have to be able to open and close it in different paces, different speeds. And so it will provide a way that you can do that, can begin to practice opening and closing that way. And one of the things that I wanted to mention was that I'm not going to tell you that you should do any specific number of repetitions of anything. How many you do is up to you, and it's what you're looking for is using it to begin to clearly feel that you are actually doing whatever it is you're focusing on. And once you can, you can move on. So there's quite a bit more, as always, in my notes, but I think I'm not going to bore you with it at the moment. That's probably enough about it to go ahead with. Do you have any questions right at the moment?
Nope.
Okay. So I'm obviously you guys are familiar with the basic dynamic sphere, and then I think last week or the week before we took it into a bow stance, so that you added the shifting weight, and that's basically, that's the basic way to really begin to work on all of these. The next variation, unless, does anybody have a question about that basic movement for any reason? I just make sure you're okay. So let me enlarge myself so you can can see what I'm doing. So the first, I'm going to just turn sideways so because I think you can see me a little better here. The first way that you can change this is still going to be just doing that basic arm movement, but actually reversing the shifting of the weight. So as you close, you bring the weight forward. And then as you open, you're going back. And as you go forward, you're closing. And as you go back, you're opening. And as you go forward, you're closing. So it just makes you change, not just fall into repetition, but think about what you're doing and then to develop the ability to do it within a slightly different motion. So that's not that difficult. And you can, of course, in each bow stance, you would do both sides. So you would start with the right arm with the right leg forward, and you close, open, and close, and open, and close, open, and close, and then you could go right on, or change to the left foot forward and have the arms reversing there. So that's really just a very slight change, not really that difficult. Do either of you have a question about that?
No.
No.
So why don't you stand up for a moment and just try that a little bit and see if you can at least open and close from the elbow through your fingertips, and if that's working pretty well, see if you can add one part of the shoulder, whatever you would like to work on. Okay, so relax. You don't have to wear yourself out here with this. Um, so, uh, any questions about that? Um, I, with you facing me, I really couldn't tell whether you were getting
Oh, yeah,
that shifting in the opposite direction or not.
yeah.
Yeah, the shifting is, I was confused with that because with the using the right, I had the right foot forward, so doing it with the right hand was simple, but without changing feet, doing it with my left hand, I wasn't sure when I was being forward or not, and it just felt uh, awkward, I guess.
So what? That's one of the places where you can really work on the pacing of a change because um, you remember that as we're doing the dynamic sphere, the opposite arm is doing the opposite opening and closing. So as you are shifting forward and closing the right arm, there has to be a point at which you begin in transition to close the left and then open the right as you're opening. And then as you open here, so that you have to. This is just like learning a new form if you have not done this before. Um, so you have to think about the timing because um, it should be continuous. And
Yeah.
being able to do the left pattern with the right foot forward and the right pattern with the left foot forward helps to keep the qua open too.
Hmm.
And obviously as we work down through the body we will get to the legs.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm so used to doing it with the step through what the transition time and the whole body movement that's why it
but but you want this to be a whole body movement too.
of course. Yeah.
So it is. I understand it's a change, um, and that's intentional because it makes you be aware of all of these in another relationship, in another
Mhm.
plane of movement. It's basically the same, but just adding the shifting. This is the easy change.
Oh, good.
um, and I think probably for you guys, this is a good one to work with for a while. But I will show you um, the the other change that I want to put out here, probably more for Carol and Joanne, because I know Joanne felt she needed to do something with more complexity than the more basic movement. So, and and you each have differing levels of training and development. So, we all work through whatever stage we've arrived at. But the I'm going to show you this other, but you don't have to go to it um, right away or at all. Depends on you. Um, this is beginning to think about the fact that that sphere that we're working with out here uh, obviously rotates. And so, in effect, we always begin at the bottom down here, but on the right side, it of course rotates clockwise, And when you do that, 6 o'clock, the 6 o'clock point moves to 9 o'clock, and then to 12, and then eventually to 3, or to all 8, to be really complex about it. But it offers a lot of possibilities of the changing of the movement that you can do repeatedly for a while and work on opening and closing through a different relationship of movement. So I'll, I'll show you what I mean. This is this really is I think one of the really, oops, that's not what I meant to do. So I'll do this first facing you. So you can do this with that reversed shifting, but I suggest that initially it's much easier to start working with our normal bow stance. So what happens here is that as you begin, the first one, of course, is what you've done before. Nothing different there. But then the next time you think about the starting point being here, the ball has rotated a quarter turn. And so what happens is that now you're opening clear to this point, and then closing through the center, and then opening back to this side, and then closing, and the closing is going to be all the way back to your starting point, not only here. So this practice gives ways of changing the pacing of opening and closing.
David, can you talk through that one more time, please?
Sure.
Maybe even 2 or 3.
Whatever. So your right arm is closed at this point, and the starting point of the pattern is now here, because the ball has rotated a quarter turn. So you're opening all the way to here, and then closing is going to be the S curve horizontally across, and then you open back to that same point, which would be here, and then you have back to your starting point. Not only this is the beginning point of the pattern, this is the starting point of the movement. So the closing has to go all the way back to here. So you've changed a little bit of the opening and closing in that beginning movement, and that movement is not so difficult. It's the other two that are a little more difficult to work with, because there are a number of changes. It's not quite so simple anymore. So when you rotate the ball on to where 6 o'clock is at the top, if you will, then opening is going to go all the way past that point to here. And then closing is going up through the S curve, and then you're closing again. Opening again, and then closing, and it's going to go all the way back to here. So it becomes, each one becomes a little more difficult than the previous one. You don't have to use them all, but they are a way to really give you a more complex movement. And once you get your opening and closing to flow freely through this, it's very easy to move it into a form, or relatively easy. I probably shouldn't say it's easy. It's certainly simple, but easier.
Can I embarrass myself by trying to paraphrase what you just said?
Sure.
Because I'm not even sure. So
I'm
our
glad you
normal
take
thing,
that.
we have 12 at the top and 6 at the bottom, and we start and we go, we go
Yeah.
around, we come through. And then we're going to rotate it a quarter, so 6 is to our left,
Uh-huh.
and we're going around and then coming back through from 12 to 6, and I mean from 3 to 6, and no, from 12 to 6, which is moved. And then we're going to rotate it another quarter, so it's upside down.
Yeah.
So 6 is at the top and 12 is at the bottom, and we're always going through the middle at the same point, but it's rotated around.
Yeah, the S curve always goes through from the original point to where it did before. But the problem, I will say, with this is that keeping staying clear about where you are.
Yes.
So obviously, staying present is part of the training that this provides.
We always enter and close from 12 to 6, right?
Well, we always enter and close at the bottom in front. So when you do the first pattern, where we start at 6, this is the extension out to opening. When you turn it a quarter, opening goes to here. When you turn it half, so it's upside down, opening goes to here, clear to the bottom. And when you turn it another quarter, opening goes all the way a circle and a quarter and then that's the beginning of the pattern, and then it goes through again. So it gets very complex so that's why I'm saying you wouldn't want to jump to certainly the third and fourth ones right away. But they are a good way to give yourself a little more complexity in your opening and closing practice. Have I confused you now?
You've reminded me of my trouble with a boat going up the river at so many miles an hour with a current against you and the wind blowing from the side.
Yeah, there you go. So it's once you develop the pattern so that you're not having to think about it, then it gives you another plane of to work on opening and closing in. But start with just um, having the weight move from forward to back, the opposite of what you originally did. It's just I think, a really good way to practice because we have so much going on in God's now that um, it 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 may be really confusing to try to add opening and closing yet already in there. So, um, other thoughts at the moment?
Well, as you're saying that, it seems to me that the God's movements, um, this doing the ball is seems more complicated to think about than adding it into any one of the God's movements, except
Yep.
maybe
Yes, it
sight.
is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So if you can do it easily and with a complete awareness in the more complex movement, then you can put it into God's and really do it in God's.
I see what you're saying.
So, um, yes, you can just work on it in God's, but um, sometimes it's helpful to start in another practice and get clear in your awareness that you are doing it, because opening and closing is a feeling. It's not a movement. Movement occurs as a result of the feeling, but it's not a movement that you make. So it's a step. Um, it's very similar, of course, to twisting and lengthening, but it's going. Um, it's going to where opening closing is going to where they are going also eventually, to where you're not having to think about it and you are working primarily with the energy and not with physical movement. So, other questions? I'm not. Okay. So, um, one thing I wanted to mention is that, and you probably saw it on the email, but I want to make sure you saw it, that we do not have class for the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
So, lots of practice time.
Okay. I'll pretend like we're having class and come and listen to this one again. So,
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Um,
This is one to watch.
and Mr. Nagel,
Yes.
well, we will have the Woo class next week,
Yes.
but not the week following.
Right. Right.
Okay. Just to make sure you're clear.
Yep.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
Okay.
see
Thank
you at
you.
the end of June.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Be
Take care,
well.
guys.
Yep.
Take care. Have a good 2 weeks.
Yep. You too.